In this last portion of our descriptive statistics study, we'll look at data for two variables using tables and graphs, and we'll understand a little bit more how to use effective graphical displays. If we have data where there are corresponding data values, let's say X and Y, we'll use something called tabulation to summarize that data. Cross tables can be used for one variable being categorical and the other quantitative, or both categorical or both quantitative. For example, if we are looking at data about the cost of homes, we have two categories. We have a home style and a price range, and a total of 100 data points or data values. We can see at the intersection of each of those two variables the number of homes that satisfy those two variables. For example, there are 18 homes which are both colonial and under $250,000. There are 3 homes which are A-frame and over $250,000. You can see in this table the total of the colonial homes is at the bottom 30. You can see at the right the total of homes which are less than $250,000 is 55. We can gain insights from a cross tabulation. As you can see here, we can see the greatest number of homes are split level and under $250,000, and only 3 homes are A-frame and over $1,000. Again, this shows that cross tabulation. We can see that we actually have a frequency distribution for the price range variable. Now, there are only 2 price ranges, and we can see that 55 out of the 100 are in the first category and 45 in the second category. Similarly, we can see the frequency distribution for the home styles. We have 4 categories of home style, and the total of 100 are divided up into each of those 4 styles. We can convert the entries in the table into percentages. The same thing for the rows and the columns. So if we looked at the row percentages, you can see that within the price range, 32.73% are colonial, 21.82% are A-frame. If we look at the cross tabulation and the total percentages by home style, again, you can see for colonial, 60% of them are low cost and 40% high cost. There is a concept called Simpson's paradox, which we won't explore here, but it talks about how careful we must be to draw conclusions about the relationships between the two variables. We can also summarize data for two variables using graphical displays. Most cases, it's more useful than the table for recognizing the patterns and the trends. Scatter diagrams and trend lines are probably the most useful and most frequently used for summarizing two variables. Scatter diagram is simply that graphical representation of the data points with one variable on the x-axis and the other on the y-axis. We can then draw a trend line through that scatter diagram. But for example, if we have data plotted as such and we draw a trend line through that data, we can see that it has a positive relationship, meaning the higher the x value, the higher the y value will be. A negative relationship, similarly, if we draw a trend line through that data, we see that the higher the x value, the lower will be the y value. We can also have no apparent relationship. I would call this more the shotgun scatter diagram, We could draw any line through this, or if it was simply a horizontal line, it would mean that regardless of what we set the x value, the y value would be about the same. So we take an example of a football team. We're looking at the relationship between interception made and points scored. Here we have a table of the corresponding x and y values, the number of interceptions, and the number of points scored. If we convert that into a scatter diagram, you'll see that apparently as the number of interceptions increases in a game, the number of points scored also increases. So we have a positive relationship. But we need to be careful. We only have 5 data points, and when you try and draw a straight line through only 5 data points, there is a risk that you would be drawing the wrong conclusion. But again, from a scatter diagram, we can draw some important conclusions about a relationship between the two variables. We can also use a side-by-side bar chart to display multiple bar charts at the same time. Each cluster of bars represents the value for one variable. And as you can see here, we've shown under the colonial homes, the tall bar chart on the left is the frequency of homes under $250,000, and just next to it, the frequency of homes greater than $250,000. The stacked bar chart is another way to display the same data, where on one bar we will stack up the 2 different frequencies for the same variable. So for example, for a colonial style, we see that there is a total of 30 homes, and you can see how it is apportioned between the low price and the high price homes on the same bar. We can also convert a stack bar chart into percentages, where each stack totals up to 100%. Some of the best practices in displaying data with graphs. You want to communicate effectively and clearly. And it is as much an art as it is a science, but some guidelines. Make sure you've got a good title, keep the display simple, clearly label each axis with its units. If you're going to use colors, make sure that they are distinct and not confusing. Here's a summary of the different types of graphical displays that we discussed. We're going to ignore for the moment the stem and leaf display, which is described in the text. It is only somewhat useful when you're unlikely to find this as you go ahead in business. We can use some displays to make comparisons. You can see side-by-side bar charts and charts. We can use some displays to show relationships, scatter diagrams, and trend lines. You will find in business frequently that organizations will create data dashboards. It's a widely used tool where it combines and organizes a number of measures or key performance indicators in one place. Showing an example of a data dashboard, you can see there are 5 different charts or graphs displayed here for the same organization. It could be very well this is for a given time period or a given branch or division of an organization. Finally, as a summary, there are different types of tabular and graphical displays for both categorical and quantitative data. This shows the range of choices that you have.